Hey my friends, Shawn here from theautomationschool.com, and in this episode of the Automation Podcast, I've invited a representative from Mitsubishi on the show to give us an overview of their PLC line. Now, if you're watching for the first time, you may be asking, hey, isn't that all Allen Bradley stuff behind you? Well, I should probably explain that. For the last 30 years, I've predominantly used Allen Bradley PLCs and HMIs and SCADA, and I now actually teach those products full-time at theautomationschool.com. But earlier in the year, over at theautomationblog.com, we made a decision to actively broaden the number of products and vendors that we cover. And we actually, because my experience is just with certain Allen Bradley products, we've reached out to all of our readers and connections to recruit a couple dozen freelance writers to write on those topics, which I'm not very familiar with. Now, we also reached out to all the major vendors. We haven't heard back from all of them, but we've reached out to Rockwell and Wago and Siemens. And, if you've watched any of the recent episodes from the Automation Show, Siemens has been great. They've sent us videos. They've sent us hardware to use on the show. And because they support our efforts to offer free articles and videos on how to use automation products. That said, one of our freelancers is actually writing a series on how to use Mitsubishi PLCs. And I thought, wouldn't it be great that if before we learn how to use their PLCs, we actually understood their product line. So I reached out to the folks over at Mitsubishi. I said, can somebody give us an overview of your product line? And thankfully, Jeff Brown offered to do a WebEx for us. Now, to keep the length of these videos and podcasts to around 20 minutes, I've actually split this episode into two. So in part one, we'll cover the small PLC line for Mitsubishi, the iQ-F. And in part two of this episode, we'll cover the large PLC line, the iQ-R. Jeff, thank you very much for putting this together. I'm really looking forward to this overview.
Well, thanks, Shawn. Thanks for this opportunity to present some more information on our controllers and provide an overview. My name is Jeff Brown. I'm an industry sales specialist with Mitsubishi. And I'm part marketing, part sales. I focus on our packaging and material handling markets. So with that said, we're going to focus on our latest programmable logic controller lineup, and that would be our iQ-F, which is our low to mid-range PLC, and our iQ-R. So I'm going to give some highlights of each PLC, and then I'll go through a selection example of each to get into the details. I'll try to not make this too much of a sales presentation, but really try to focus on, what are the ins and outs of each of these PLC. Given we want to do this pretty fast, I can't get into a lot of details, but, if there's more questions, you'll have my information, or feel free to reach out to your local Mitsubishi rep and they can help you out. So before we get into the current PLCs, just a quick historical controller lineup and what's out there. I mean, we've been making PLCs for a long time, like the other big vendors. So you'll see here, you start with the Melsec F, and that's your micro brick. And then there was the L, which was a modular PLC. And then the Q was the high end. And now there's the iQ-R and the iQ-F. Okay. And the iQ-F is really an extension of what was the F. So the F had numbers, the last version was F3. So we'll talk about the F5 PLC. Okay. So from a program, just really quick, we're not going to, talk programming software, but real quick, the older lines were programmed with GXWorks II. So GXWorks is the name of the PLC programming software. Okay. The newer line is programmed with GXWorks III. So what's cool now is when you buy GXWorks III, you actually get GXWorks II inside of it. All of the software comes. So, it's a pretty flat software. It gives you all your capabilities, but it's all in one software.
Nice.
just something I'll note. This is kind of a something used in certain parts of the world. It's something called steps, and you'll see it in our specs. So what's in a step? It's just really a program memory standard. And what it really means here, as you'll see in the bottom, is a step is equal to 2 bytes in our iQ-F, 4 bytes in the iQ-R. Surprisingly, 4 bytes is 32 bits, 2 bytes is 16 bits, but it's a way of just managing memory size. What I tend to do with our PLCs is I look at the total data memory, and I kind of use that as a rule of thumb. So if there's, if you're using another PLC line, depending on the PLC line, how they manage memory, like for a Siemens, that's a 1-to-1, or a Rockwell. Typically, because we're managing bits and bytes in our processor, we're a little less memory needed. You could rule of thumb, I kind of go with a half to 75%.
Okay.
So, keep that in mind as you look at our specs of our PLC.
Good to know. Good to know.
And then, so we'll start with the iQ-F series. The iQ-F series consists of 2 different main models. There's the FX-5U and the FX-5UC. So the main difference being, if you remember, we used to have that L, and that L is still out there. That was more of a modular design. So, you'll see more modular PLCs. So we did a version of this that is more modular. And can you see my pointer?
Yes, absolutely. It's coming through great.
Okay. So here is the FX5UC. So I'll talk a little bit more about that one, because I really think that's, from a size standpoint and performance, it's a niche for what we offer. And then there's your more standard, what I would call brick style of this PLC, where you have, inputs at the top, outputs at the bottom. You have analog, you have expansion capability to the right, you have expansion capability to the left. It has onboard Ethernet. It has a fully functional web server now.
Nice.
A run, start, stop switch, RS-45 port as well. So I'll get a little more under the hood on this as far as, model numbers and how it's set up, but that's the general overview. And like I said, this is, the next generation from our FX3. So right now with the FX5, we have, we have different versions of this, but there's not, like with our FX3 line, there's different like processor and memory levels. We don't have that right now with this line. There's, right now it's kind of the higher end with the processor and memory level.
Okay.
But we still are offering our FX3, which has, goes down to a real, lower end processor to a higher end. So the FX5UC, first of all, I guess just from a size standpoint, I got some dimensional comparisons on the next page, but it's not much bigger than a remote control. It's pretty small and cute, but powerful at the same time. So you can have on board, it comes in versions of 32.6496, and that's a combination of inputs and outputs. So here I'm showing a picture of the 32 points, so there's 16 in, 16 out. And there is spring clamp options. So when you look at our specs, you'll see a version that is -TS, and that means it's the spring clamp version. So you don't have to put a special connector on there. And then we do a pretty unique motion control capabilities with these, where we add a motion module that gives you full interpolation, camming, and gearing up to 8-axis.
Wow.
As
Nice.
well as there's, and the next slide talks about that a little bit. As well as there's communications options, and, really we focus first out of the gate with having an Ethernet IP. And forgive me, it's consumer produced. So, the Ethernet IP module will do master or slave. So you can talk to IO with it, or you can talk, up to PLCs. So,
Oh, that's great.
that was something we added, really to focus on the U.S. market. It doesn't have Profinet yet, unfortunately, but we really focused first on ensuring we have the connectivity for, the U.S. market.
Now, let me ask a question on that. Is that an expansion module, or is that the built-in Ethernet? I mean, the built-in Ethernet port I see on the processor itself, the controller itself. Is that just Modbus TCP, or does that also have the Ethernet IP?
The Ethernet IP is an expansion module. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I'll kind of show how that's specified.
Okay.
And then the onboard port will do Modbus TCP, and then it'll do, so in the Mitsubishi world, the open network, we, really promote from our system standpoint is CC Link IE Field, which is an open Ethernet, and this onboard port will support CC Link IE Field Basic, which is it's not our highest speed deterministic network, but it's fine for, say, doing basic motion control where you want to talk to some servos, or you want to talk to our VFDs.
Okay.
So that's a means of having a system without adding additional comms or hardwiring to the VFDs or servo.
No, that's excellent. So CC Link.
Yep, and I have one slide just mentions CC Link. And just like the other networks, like Rockwell has gone from ControlNet and DeviceNet to, Ethernet IP being SIP on their network, and Siemens has gone from Profibus to Profinet.
Yep.
Mitsubishi has gone from CC Link being an RS-485 network to CC Link being an Ethernet network, a full Ethernet network.
That's
with
cool. Okay.
the latest release of our CC Link is TSN certified. So the nice thing about that is more and more of the networks are starting to, be able to, talk together and crosstalk to further, allow, different technologies to work together.
Nice.
So just from a size standpoint, from a comparison on how the 5UC looks to other controllers, a MicroLogix 830 with similar I/O would be about that size. There's a Compact Logix, there's a Siemens, and I just took my remote because that's how small this PLC is. It's with cabinet space being at a premium. I just wanted to get that a point across on size.
Size-wise, it looks like you really have probably the leadership in the industry right now as far as the other big players, right? Just looking at how small that guy is.
I have not seen one as small as this, and we're a big company. I mean, we really focus on quality. I mean, we're Japanese based, right? If you've ever been to Japan, they don't have a ton of space over there. So we've always made stuff pretty small, and this is small. I haven't seen anything smaller. I'm not going to claim we're the smallest, because then someone will come out and say they're the smallest. But
Yeah.
this is the smallest I've ever seen. So I mentioned the motion control, and the way we do the motion control is we add we call it simple motion, but in reality, these motion controllers can do 4 and 8 axis, full interpolation, camming, gearing. You can add a virtual axis. I mean, it's a whole full motion control within this architecture. The reason we call it simple is because how you set it up in the software, there's mechatronics configuration. You can access the servo axis settings. You know, it's all in one software. But from a capability standpoint, you know, there's a 4 and an 8 axis motion control module. And then it does talk over maybe this is more of a proprietary fiber optic network, but that's how you get the speed. And then it is connected into our, you know, our compact servo drives. So we really think that's a really great niche for, you know, especially like on packaging, if you're doing vertical form fill sill, you know, a flying saw cutting application, you know, even a three axis gantry with tied to a conveyor. You know, this really offers you the combination of a PLC and motion control, you know, at a affordable price, right, to fit that. So, you know, we think that's one area that we can differentiate right now in the market.
Yeah, looks like a good offering.
So just that's the overview. I put some links on here to a couple of tools. There's a selection tool and a selection guide. We have heard that customers really like our selection guide, and I'm going to just go ahead and bring that up here.
Sure, please.
So the selection guide, you know, goes, so this is the FX5 view. So here you see the main CPUs. And, you know, one thing I really like about Mitsubishi, you know, versus even with Siemens is, and I've worked for Beckhoff, is you get customers that want sink or source, you know, depending on what their sensors are. And we do have different PLCs depending on if, you know, it's sink or source or sink and source. So you'll see there's quite a few different models here that really the difference is, you know, there's 32 combination IO, 64, 80, and then there's sink or source or sink and source on these models. And then there's 24 volt power or, you know, 120 volt power. So that's your main PLC lines. There's a, you know, a front expansion board for comms or a battery for your clock to maintain that. To your left, you can expand with some analog options or some communications options.
Now, is that a single expansion card or is that multiple on the left?
It's multiple, and further down you can do, I think, up to 3. Further down I'll show, you know, there's some limits on how many you can do, but yeah, you can add those to the left. And then as you go to the right, there's your, you know, you have inputs, outputs. You know, I would say the one thing we didn't do on the FX5 is do 120 volt IO. We have it on the FX3, and we just didn't sell a ton of them.
Sure.
And we sold a lot of FX3s, you know, in the United States. So if you're going to go 120 volt, you either got to go to the FX3 or you got to go up to our iQ-R, which are, you know, is our high end for 120 volt.
Sure.
IO.
Sure.
So here you'll see there's the high speed pulse input. And then these are, you know, the analog. There's universal analog. So, you know, it's selectable if you want it to be 0 to 10, plus or minus 10, 0 to 20, 4 to 20. And then there's some lower cost ones, you know, that are just your 0 to 10 as well.
Sure.
And then I mentioned networking. So there's the Ethernet IP. There's a standard Ethernet. There's also, you know, when you're doing a Mitsubishi system and you need more connections, and this comes in handy when we're, you know, if we're crossing over to, say, a customer that's using like a compact Logix I did one where they were using an L320, and really our only limit when looking at that was the connections. And in that case, I could add a CC Link IE field, and that would give me additional connections, right? So I wasn't limited on, say I needed to connect to, 16 drives.
Sure.
Then I could do that. So a lot of expandability.
Let me ask you, does it show here how many IO cards you can expand locally? Like, I mean, with other vendors, it's, it differs. Oh, all right, right here.
Yep. So there's the 5U and the 5UC. So on the 5U, you can go up to 12 modules locally, and of eight of those can be intelligent modules. And then on the 5UC, you can go up to 16 modules. Now, on the 5U, you may get in some limits on your bus current, and you may have to add, there's extension power supplies that boost your amps, right, for your bus.
Perfect, yep.
And then on the 5UC, there is, and these modules will work. So the 5UC CPUs use a -C. These were those picture of those very compact spring, the ones with the TS or spring clamp.
Okay.
So if you recall, we'll just go back to my picture here. This is a very slim line IO that is available with the 5UC.
Okay.
So it's just, you'll notice up here, if we were talking about the 5U, there's no C in front of this inputs and outputs. You can add it via conversion module on the 5U, but then the 5UC uses that -C. So it's a slimmer line, again, getting to a small form factor. Okay, so and then in the selection guide, you go down to your actual PLCs, and you'll see here, there's your different models, IO, and then if it's 120 volt here, 100 to 240, and then these models are 24 volt. And then it does have 2 analog in and 1 analog out, which I know I've ran into applications where, customers do like having that 1 analog out for whatever reason. So that's the FX5. The other link I have on here, sorry, I'm jumping around. I'm going to get back to
No, please do.
Is there's a selection tool. So I won't, the selection tool, there's an iQ-F and an iQ-R. And, I want to mention this because most vendors have some way of, doing a selection. And so in this case, I can go and pick my, I'm going to do a compact CPU, and here you'll see that there's sync source. Here's the TS. So there's a sync version and a source version for my outputs. I'll select that, and then I can add in my IO.
Oh, nice. Okay. Very user-friendly.
Yes. Yeah, very user-friendly. I can add in, say in that case, I'm working in a plant and I have a lot of installed base that's Ethernet IP, and I want to be able to connect this in. I can go down and I can select that Ethernet IP module, add that on, and then, it gives me a configuration chart, tells me my dimensions, what I have, and then it gives me a list of components that I can copy to the clipboard as well. So
nice.
Easy way of configuration. And that is the FX5 in a nutshell.
Well, I really enjoyed that. I hope you did too. And I want to thank Jeff again for taking time out of his busy schedule right before Pack Expo to put together this presentation for us, this WebEx call for us. And if you're a vendor watching this and you'd like to do something similar, just contact me over at theautomationblog.com. That said, if you're a viewer and you want to keep us on the air and keep the website going and help us branch out and cover more products and more vendors, you can support us now over at patreon.com/automation. And when you do, you can use your Patreon account to log into the Automation blog, get an ad-free experience at the Automation blog, plus get free downloads in the store that's over at theautomationblog.com. That includes articles, videos, sample code, etc. So check it out, patreon.com/automation. And with that, my name is Shawn from theautomationschool.com. Until next time, my friends, peace.